You won the lottery. Now what? This moment, this sudden unfolding of your long-held desire into tangible reality, is not an accident. It is the visible expression of an inner act, long performed in the silence of your imagination. You may think the numbers were drawn by chance, that fate smiled upon you arbitrarily. But in truth, nothing in this world happens by luck. Everything seen was first imagined, and everything imagined persistently becomes seen. The world is yourself pushed out. This windfall, this winning ticket, was not given to you. It was called forth by the state you occupied. Long before the lottery results were announced, you already lived in the end. You felt the joy. You tasted the freedom. You experienced the thrill of wealth before the numbers ever aligned. That state, when sustained, had no choice but to externalize itself. Now comes the real question: will you remain faithful to the new state you have called forth, or will you let fear and doubt steal your harvest? You must understand, the riches you hold are not the real treasure. They are but the shadow of your consciousness. The source of wealth is not the ticket. It is not the bank account. The source is you, the inner man who imagined the end and felt it real. That self, when forgotten, causes the outer blessings to fade, but when remembered and honored, causes wealth to multiply and peace to remain. So you have won, but do not lose sight of how you won. Live from the state of fulfillment, not the fear of loss. Move as one who always knew abundance. Do not let the outer world tell you how to think, feel, or act. Let your inner vision remain sovereign. For the same imagination that brought you here can take you further still. What you have is wonderful. But who you are is divine. Winning is a result of inner imagination. The lottery win is not luck or chance, but a manifestation of a desire first realized in imagination. Outer reality reflects inner states. The physical world, including winning the lottery, is a projection of the consciousness and beliefs one holds within. Sustained faith is essential to maintain and grow the blessing. One must remain in the state of fulfillment and not fall into fear or doubt. The true source is within. The wealth is not in the money, but in the power of imagination and consciousness that created the outcome. Continue living from the end. Remain aligned with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, as the same power that brought this win can manifest greater things. You may have thought it was chance, that the numbers you selected, or perhaps a quick pick by a machine, lined up perfectly by sheer luck. But nothing in this world occurs by accident. There are no coincidences, no random blessings. Every event, every so-called miracle, is a reflection of a deeper cause, and that cause is consciousness. Winning the lottery is not about luck. It is not about odds. It is not about chance or fortune smiling upon you. It is about your own inner activity, the unseen movements of your imagination. Long before your hand held the ticket, long before the numbers were drawn, long before the world knew what was coming, you may have imagined, even briefly, what it would feel like to win. Perhaps you entertained the idea while drifting to sleep. Perhaps you visualized your account balance or the freedom of a life without financial stress. Maybe you saw yourself giving, traveling, or simply living without fear. Those imaginal acts, though fleeting, were seeds. And like all seeds, when nourished, they must grow. You see, imagination is the creative power of the universe expressing itself through you. When you imagine a scene and fully embody it, when you feel the reality you desire as if it were already so, you call that experience into being. You become one with it. The world outside may not shift instantly, but internally something changes. A new state is assumed. And once a new state is assumed, life must reflect it. The world will rearrange itself to mirror your inner convictions. That is law. It may appear that you simply bought a ticket and happened to win. But you did not win because you bought the ticket. You bought the ticket because you already believed, somewhere in your deeper self, that you were one who wins. And that belief compelled the action which brought the result. We are never the victims of fate. We are always creators, whether consciously or unconsciously. If you win and do not understand how you won, you may attribute it to luck and miss the deeper truth, that you were always the cause. But if you know that this outward success is simply the echo of an inward assumption, then you become powerful beyond measure. You are no longer a beggar waiting for blessings. You become the source from which blessings flow. Now that the evidence of your assumption has appeared, now that the world confirms what you once only dreamed, take this moment to remember imagination is the only reality. It was not the ticket that made you rich. It was not the numbers. It was not the system. It was your consciousness. Your imaginal act, though invisible to the world, created a new reality. If it worked once, it can work again, not just for money, not just for one-time wins, but for all areas of life. Health, love, peace, purpose, all are subject to the same law. What you dare to imagine and feel as true must come to pass. Do not limit yourself to what your senses tell you is possible. Do not be confined by statistics or probabilities. You have already defied them. You have proven that inner conviction overrides outer conditions, that your assumption, once sustained, will harden into fact. So let this victory become your reminder you are the operant power. You imagined the end and lived in it. And now, that inner world has become your outer world. The next time you desire something, anything, return to that sacred act. Close your eyes. Withdraw from appearances. And imagine, not as a dreamer, but as a creator. Feel the wish fulfilled. Rest in that knowing. And know that your world must conform to your assumption, just as it has done now. You did not win by chance. You won by law, the law of imagination. The world you see with your eyes is not the cause of your experience. It is the effect. It is the mirror. And it can only reflect back to you what you first accepted as true within yourself. Many people believe they are reacting to life, responding to events, adapting to situations. They think the world happens to them. But that is an illusion. Life is not happening to you. It is happening through you. Your outer world is simply the echo of your inner world, the manifestation of the state you dwell in mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Every condition in your life, whether it be wealth or lack, health or sickness, joy or sorrow, began not outside but within. Your beliefs, assumptions, feelings, and persistent thoughts carve out the shape of your reality, just as surely as the sculptor molds clay. The world is molded by the unseen hand of your own state of consciousness. You may look at a lottery win and think, this is an external event. It happened outside of me. But consider this, what drew you to buy the ticket? What made you feel drawn toward that moment, toward that action? Perhaps it was a quiet knowing, a moment of inspiration, a sense of certainty. And even if you cannot trace the thought consciously, something within you aligned with that experience. You stepped into a state where abundance was natural, and the world had no choice but to reflect that back to you. The outer reality cannot contradict the inner state for long. The two must harmonize. You cannot persistently believe you are unwanted and find lasting love. You cannot dwell in feelings of lack and experience consistent prosperity. And you cannot imagine and feel yourself to be successful without, in time, seeing that truth unfold outwardly. Your current reality Whatever it looks like is simply the evidence of the state you have most often occupied. And the beauty of this truth is that if you desire to change your world, you do not need to fight with circumstances. You do not need to struggle with people or conditions. You only need to change your state. Change the conception of yourself. Change the assumptions you hold to be true. Imagine yourself already in possession of what you desire and dwell in that feeling as if it were already so. When you do, the outer must shift, for it cannot resist the command of the inner world. Do not make the mistake of thinking that your imagination is weak or that it is fantasy. It is the root of all reality. The physical word is the branch, the fruit. Your inner state is the seed. And just as the quality of a seed determines the harvest, so your inner state determines the form your life will take. You can never experience something on the outside that you have not first made real on the inside. You may win the lottery, yes, but that win was born from the assumption, the belief, the feeling of being one who is blessed, one who receives, one who lives in the flow of abundance. That state of mind called the experience into form. If you wish to keep what you have received or multiply it, stay faithful to the state that brought it forth. Let go of fear, of doubt, of the need to look over your shoulder and wonder when it will disappear. The outer world is only the mirror. The true power lies within you. The life you lead is not shaped by conditions, but by consciousness. Reality is not solid. It is fluid, responsive, ever-changing, shaped moment by the state you embody. So as you walk through life, do not be deceived by appearances. If you want to know what state you've been living in, look at your world. And if you want to know what your world will look like tomorrow, look at your state today. Outer reality reflects inner states. The world is your mirror. Change the man within, and the world without must follow. It is law. It is one thing to touch the state of fulfillment, and quite another to remain there. Many people brush against their desires, glimpse their potential, and even manifest the first signs of their imagination unfolding, only to fall back into fear, doubt, and limitation. The truth is, the creative power within you does not respond to fleeting wishes or momentary excitement. It responds to sustained faith. To sustain faith is not to merely hope for good things. It is not passive, nor is it blind. It is active participation in the reality you have assumed. It is standing still in the knowing that what you have imagined is already yours, even when the senses scream otherwise. It is the discipline of refusing to return to the old state, the old story, the old you. When you won the lottery or received any form of unexpected good, it was the result of having entered and persisted in a new state. Maybe it came after weeks of imagining, maybe after years of longing, or maybe after one single moment of deep inner conviction. But whatever the path, the principle remains. You touched the state of fulfillment, and the outer world obeyed. But the work does not end there. To maintain the blessing and allow it to grow, you must continue to dwell in that inner atmosphere. It is easy to let fear creep in. What if it was a mistake? What if it doesn't last? But every time you entertain those doubts, you re-enter the old state, the state of lack, the state of fear, the state of not enough. And from that state, life must mirror your fear. Faith is not just believing once. It is the continual return to the truth of who you are and what is yours by divine right. It is the refusal to negotiate with appearances. It is saying, this is done, and living as though it were, even if no sign has yet appeared. And when the sign does appear, when the evidence begins to show, you do not loosen your faith, you deepen it. You water a garden not once, but again and again until the roots are strong and the harvest secure. So it is with your inner state. The seed was planted when you first believed. But to see it fully bloom, you must stay in the atmosphere that caused it to grow. Let the outer signs reassure you, but not rule you. Let the numbers in your account, the relationships you attract, the opportunities that open, all these can be enjoyed, but remember they are the effect, not the cause. The cause is within you. And if you remain faithful to the cause, the effects will multiply. Faith is not about forcing yourself to believe. It is about resting in the feeling of fulfillment, returning to it when the world tries to distract you, anchoring yourself in the invisible truth rather than the visible facts. Faith is feeling real what the world has not yet confirmed and knowing it will. When fear arises, do not condemn yourself. Simply notice it and return to the state. When doubt knocks at the door, do not argue. Just turn your attention inward. Recall the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Let it rise in you. Let it become more real than anything outside. You are not maintaining a fantasy. You are maintaining the root of your reality. Sustained faith is not effort, it is alignment. It is tuning yourself again and again to the vibration of what you desire. And when you live there long enough, your world must take the shape of that inner dwelling. So do not chase the blessing. Sustain the state that brought it. Do not fear the loss. Remain faithful to the law that gave it to you. The outer may shift and sway, but your inner world, if it remains rooted in fulfillment, will continue to bring forth abundance. The one who remains in the state of the wish fulfilled, unwavering and steadfast, is the one who not only receives the blessing, but lives in its overflow. You may be holding a winning ticket in your hand. You may see a large number in your bank account. You may feel a surge of excitement as the reality of financial freedom begins to settle into your awareness. But pause for a moment. Look deeper. Let not your eyes deceive you. The wealth is not in the numbers. It is not in the ticket. It is not even in the things that money can buy. The real wealth is within you. The consciousness that created the condition. The world of form is a shadow, a mirror, an effect. It is not the source. The source is the self that dared to imagine something greater. The source is the invisible you, the inner being that stepped into the state of abundance before a single dollar appeared. What you now hold in your hand is evidence, yes, but the cause of that evidence lies not outside of you, but deep within your own imagination. People often make the mistake of believing that money itself is power, that wealth lies in possessions, property, or status. But none of these things have life of their own. They are moved by the unseen forces of belief, imagination, and consciousness. You are not rich because you possess money. You possess money because you became rich in consciousness first. If tomorrow you were to lose all material wealth, but you retained the awareness of being abundant, truly, deeply, unshakably abundant, you would recreate wealth again. Not because you are lucky, not because of opportunity or connections, but because consciousness outpictures itself, and the one who knows themselves to be wealthy cannot remain without wealth for long. On the other hand, if you possess all the riches of the world, but carry within a sense of lack, fear, and insecurity, you will find a way to lose what you have gained. Why? Because the outer world cannot long defy the inner world. That is law. The source of everything you see, everything you touch, everything you experience is not out there. It is within. You do not need to worship the effects. You do not need to cling to money or fear its loss. You need only return again and again to the awareness of the self that created it all. For from that self flows everything. When you remember the true source, you are free, free from dependency, free from anxiety, free from the roller coaster of outer conditions. You realize that your creative power is not tied to the stock market, the economy, or the opinions of others. It is tied only to your ability to assume a state and dwell in it. The imagination is the workshop of God in man, and whatever you dare to believe as true, if persisted in, will harden into fact. The money, the house, the lifestyle, they all emerge from the invisible field of your awareness. You did not receive wealth from the world. You projected wealth upon the world from within. So guard the inner state. Nurture, honor it. It is more valuable than any treasure you could hold in your hand. For with it, you can produce endless treasure. You can rebuild, restore, and recreate anything. Do not envy others for what they possess. Do not chase what seems to be missing. Instead, return to your inner center, the place from which all things arise. There, quietly and confidently, assume the feeling of being one who already has. Be still and know that it is done. Let the outer world shift as it must. Let circumstances move. You remain rooted in the source. For when you are aligned with the truth that all power is within, you no longer fear outcomes. You no longer beg for signs. You walk in the fullness of your creative identity. The world you see is your own consciousness objectified. The true riches are not in what you hold, but in the self that imagined it. And that self is always within you, unchanging, limited, and eternal. Do not let the manifestation be the end. Let it be the beginning of a greater understanding. You have received. You have seen your desire crystallize into form. But the very same power that brought it to you, that unseen force that responded to your assumption, is not limited to a single event. It is infinite, eternal, and it remains within you still. The key now is not to return to the old way of thinking, the old patterns of worry and doubt. The temptation will be strong. You may feel the need to protect what you've received, to hold it tightly in fear of losing it. But that is not the path of the Creator. That is the path of one who has forgotten who they are. You must continue to live from the end. Living from the end is not merely about imagining a single desire into being. It is a way of life. It is a conscious decision to occupy, moment by moment, the state of already being the person you desire to be, of already having what your heart longs for. When you lived from the end before, you stepped into the experience of abundance. You didn't just think about winning. You felt it. You saw yourself as one who had already received. You may have walked differently, spoken differently, even breathed differently. And from that state, the outer world rearranged itself. Why stop now? The same principle applies, always. Whether it is money, health, love, or purpose. The only requirement is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and live there. To continue living from the end is to trust the invisible more than the visible. It is to feel calm while the world shifts, to feel secure while others panic, to feel blessed even before the blessing appears. It is not denial of facts. It is faith in truth. The truth that your inner state determines your outer reality. When you hold on to the state of fulfillment, you don't merely maintain what you've received. You multiply it. Because the world does not respond to effort. It responds to alignment. The state you embody is always creating, always attracting, always shaping. So when the voice of fear whispers, "What if it doesn't last?" respond by returning to the end. Feel again the joy of having. When doubt knocks and says, "This can't happen again," silence it with the deep knowing that it has already happened. Within. The creative process is not something you switch on and off. It is always working. The only question is, from what state are you creating now? Are you reacting to appearances? Or are you living from your chosen end? You do not need to see the entire path. You only need to remain faithful to the destination. And that destination is not somewhere out there. It is a feeling within you, a sense of being, a knowing, a calm certainty that what you desire is already yours. Your job is not to figure out how. Your job is to be, to persist in the state, to imagine with clarity, to feel with conviction, and to trust with patience. The how will come. The bridge of incidents will unfold. The world will do what it must. You remain in the end. This is not a technique. It is an awakening to who you truly are, the operant power. You are not waiting on the world. The world is responding to you. So live boldly. Think from the place of already having. Speak from the reality of fulfillment. Act with the assurance of one who knows that nothing is withheld. And when you do, life will expand beyond what you once thought possible. Continue to live from the end, not just once, not just for one desire, but as your natural state of being. For the one who lives from the end walks in faith, rests in truth, and manifests not just moments, but a life of deep and lasting fulfillment. Now you know the truth. What appeared as fortune, what the world calls luck, was never outside of you. The winning ticket, the manifested wealth, the outward success, all of it was born in the invisible workshop of your imagination. You created it. You sustained it. And you received it, not as a beggar hoping for a miracle, but as one who dared to live in the end. Do not be deceived by appearances. The true treasure is not in what you hold, but in the self who imagined, believed, and persisted. The source is not the money, not the event, not the circumstance. The source is you. The inner man, the operant power. Remain faithful to that power. Dwell not in fear, but in fulfillment. Let the feeling of the wish fulfilled be your dwelling place. For the same imagination that brought forth this blessing can bring forth infinitely more. Nothing is too great. Nothing is too small. Imagination creates reality. So walk boldly, not as one who hopes, but as one who knows. Assume the highest, live from the end, and let the world conform. You do not need to chase the blessing. You are the blessing. You do not need to seek signs. You are the sign. Remember always, your world is yourself pushed out. Change your self-conception, and your world must change. Persist in the state of the wish fulfilled, and you will move from glory to glory, for creation is finished, and all things are already yours.